Running It Back is presented to you by the Honolulu Star Advertiser and Hawaiian Telecom.
Welcome to Running It Back. I'm here with Chad Owens, Ryan Kilmaka, and today we are talking to former professional soccer player who played in the MLS for 12 years, Ryan Ching. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, everybody.
The first Hawaiian, yeah?
The first Hawaiian.
I think the only.
The only.
Damn.
B, are you the only?
No, what? To play in MLS or on the national team?
Both. Like, or one or the other.
In the MLS, there's been a few guys. A guy, Zach Scott, I went to college at Gonzaga with out of Maui. He played for the Sounders for a while. And then as far as the national team, Bobby Wood grew up in Hawaii. And then he moved away when he was young, but he's been playing in Germany for a while, and I think he just came back to the States.
Wow. That's amazing, man.
So a few of us.
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, congratulations, man, on an unbelievable career. I did it on the football side. Well, I guess I got to say American football. For professional in the soccer, I keep saying soccer. Do you guys say football?
No, soccer. Soccer. In the States, right? You go outside the States, then it's football.
Yeah.
Oh,
football.
Okay.
Football.
Anyway, man, congratulations on an amazing soccer career. Did you guys by any chance play Toronto FC while in the MLS?
They were in the league when I was there, so yeah, we ended up playing them. Pretty cool little stadium, great environment up there. Loved traveling up there. We actually had one of the guys. His name's Dane Di Rosario. Was from Toronto. What? And was one of our best players, and actually I think he won the MVP in the league one year. So
wait, hold on. You played with Dwayne? You guys were on the same team?
Yeah.
Oh man, he's a Toronto legend.
He is definitely a legend up there. He just came out with a book.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to reading that.
Yeah, man. I played in Toronto for a number of years in the CFL, and was the field was it BMO? Was it still BMO Field when you guys? Wow.
Yeah. But they put some renovations in there. I think over the past probably 5-10 years, right?
Yeah.
That made it even bigger and better.
Yeah, and it's got reconfigured to accommodate the football team as well. So it's cool, man. It's cool. So
fun city.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Toronto's blessed. Ryan, you've been there.
Yeah, I love it out there.
I wanna
Visit you all
go.
the time. His poster was always on the billboard was just boom, Chad Owens.
Really?
Yeah, I'll be riding the bike. I'll be like, yo, that's my bro.
Yeah, Key, I had a billboard. Your boy made it.
Wow.
Your boy made it.
Even on the arena, right? On the arena, you was on the arena.
No, it wasn't that big. Just on the bus stop.
Well, billboards.
It was the bus stops, like just 8x10s on the bus stop. No, but Brian, where are you at currently? Where do you reside?
No, I live in Houston. I retired here, and then when I retired, I thought I wanted to run a team one day, and we just started the women's professional soccer team here called the Houston Dash. And so as soon as I retired, I jumped in being the general manager of that.
Wow.
And trying to kind of start that in the NWSL. And so that was a challenge and interesting experience. And then, so I did that for a number of years. And then, just personally, I didn't really want to run a team. I found that out, and so I kind of moved on from that.
No, that's interesting. I want to stick with this subject, bro, because I see, it's sort of a trend, right? A lot of former players in all sports become coaches, head coaches, eventually GMs, and sometimes, owners. They get ownership of teams. What was it about it that you realized that you didn't like, or it wasn't for you?
When you're a player, you always kind of, you don't really think about what's next a lot of times, right? And then, I was fortunate enough to play long enough that, the last few years, I kind of knew I was going to be retiring. So I was like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? I want to stay in sports. I don't want to coach because I've seen, good coaches come and go just because, a few bad injuries, this or that, one or two things goes wrong, so there wasn't a lot of stability in that. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe front office side, I enjoy the business side of things. I want to try to, kind of reduce that stress and that risk. But, for me, I think it came down to a number of things. I got married right after, I had a kid, so I wanted to spend a lot of time. My priorities changed, right? I wanted to spend majority of my time with my son. I wanted to be around a lot. And if, you weren't going to pay me millions of dollars where I could, I'm taking that time away from him now that I could recoup it later on, where I could just, not have to work because I made enough money. But, so it was just kind of one of those things. It's like, I don't want to kill myself and not make a ton of money. Right. And so, while I was doing that, I was still trying to figure out other things. And so, I started a bar in
hold on,
Houston
B.
as well.
Sorry to cut you off here, but I want to continue that conversation, but we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back to hear more about that story.
Running It Back is brought to you by the Honolulu Star Advertiser, bringing you what matters. Viewers can receive full digital access for $9.95 with code AHITHING. Hawaiian Telcom. Fiber power your TV and internet by calling 808-643-0900 or check availability at hawaiiantel.com.
We are back here with Brian. We were just talking about his son, and I think we want to know a little bit more about your family. No?
Yeah, of course.
So I got married right out after, I retired, and then had a 5-year-old son. His name's Chase. Love it. Your priorities change when you
Does he
when you
play
have
soccer
kids.
too?
You know what? He started to play when he was 3, and then just totally went to baseball. And I was like, don't do that. I was still like, you know what, whatever. So I was like, throwing the ball all the time. Got him to be a switch hitter.
Oh, nice.
That's good.
She's pretty athletic, thankfully. And then, and then now he just started, within the past 3-4 months, started to get back into soccer. And so, dribbling the soccer ball everywhere.
Nice.
He was doing Ninja Warrior too. So I'm trying to experiment, try to let him do everything.
Wait, hold on.
What's
Time
Ninja
out. 5 years old, Ninja Warrior.
Is there a kid's show?
I mean, he watches it, right? But then I take him to a bunch of Ninja Warrior gyms around town. And then he's just doing all
do we
the,
have a Ninja
all the
Warrior
things.
here?
My cousin.
No, a gym.
Oh, I was like, my cousin was on the actual show, American Ninja Warrior. But I think we do.
Do we have a gym that's
Yeah, I think there's a couple.
just to that?
Look,
I don't
that
know.
show is unreal.
Yes.
Hey, man, any which way he can make it. And trust me, B, I can relate. I have a son who's just graduated high school now, though. He's 18.
Okay.
And, I was like, okay, he's going to be a football player. And he ended up playing football. But he also played baseball and all sports and just staying athletic. But now, he chose to go with baseball. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, they didn't have their senior year here. So they played baseball. And that's what he's going to be pursuing. But I feel you on the same sport as dad kind of deal, But
for me, it was more like, what can I help him the most out at, right? I don't care. When it comes to a money thing, I'll be like, baseball. Guaranteed contracts, long contracts. You can play forever. Go for it.
How is the contracts with soccer though?
They're getting better, right?
They're getting better?
It's not. It depends where you are too, right? If you're in Europe, playing for some big clubs, they're pretty similar to the sports here. But in the MLS, from when I first started, right, back in, I think my first contract was in 2001.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
24,000 a year. And then there were guys because they were, the league was starting out, eventually one owner owned 5 teams. This guy, Philip Anschutz, if it wasn't for him, we own 5 teams when there are only 10 teams. But, now the sport's blowing up and, it just like everything else, it just takes time. And, guys are making, millions of dollars now, certain players in the MLS. So, It's getting there, but I think, for me, like when we were going through there, the top guys are making $300,000-400,000 a year,
Wow.
which is a good salary, but nothing compared to the other major sports.
Yeah, and B, I want to stay on this topic because I think a lot of the kids, a lot of youngsters, they're wanting to know more about money earlier now. I just feel that way. These kids are like money hungry, and you talked about now the top tier players are making in the millions. What's the base? What's the minimum in MLS that they're making right now?
To be honest, I haven't kept up. I would imagine it's around 70 to 100. And the average is probably. This is all me guessing. I mean, It's probably. I could probably Google it real quick, but I would imagine the average player is probably around 200. Something like that, maybe.
That sounds about right. Man. I feel the same way in the CFL. Like, CFL, NFL, it's big difference, man. A few more zeros in the NFL. On the top tier player in the CFL, the quarterback, he's making $700,000 a year. Like that's good money, but that's just kind of like whatever, right? In the NFL, and the lower tier guys, they're making $60,000, but this is Canadian, so you convert that to US, and then after taxes, and then convert it.
It's not as much.
It's not that much. So you're out there, and I get it, bro. I heard you say $24,000. I get it, man. It's all love and passion. But we're gonna talk more about that when we get back. We're gonna take another quick break. We'll hear Brian Ching.
Running It Back is brought to you by the Department of Health. Visit Hawaii Opioid to learn about opioids, safe medication storage, and how to prevent an overdose. To access substance use treatment services, call Hawaii Cares at 1-800-753-6879. Izzy Tows It, providing towing services island-wide. Visit towingserviceoahu.com.
All right, so we're back here with Brian. And Brian, I just have a question for you. What was the vibe like playing in the U.S. compared to Europe, or as opposed to Europe?
Depends, I mean, it's gotten so much better over the years. When I first, got into the league, one of our games was in with the Broncos, where the Broncos played Mile High Stadium, and we probably had about 5,000 fans in that stadium. So could you imagine? There's like no atmosphere, It's this big stadium, and you're just playing these games there. And then, you take that, you look at now, you look at like the Atlantas, the Seattles, and you're getting like those European type feel,
of course,
where everybody's chanting,
nonstop.
It's going back and forth, pounding the drums. And it's really cool, and just kind of seeing the evolution of it and it grow. And, I think for me, one of the best experiences as far as playing wise was going down to Mexico City and playing in Azteca, 100,000 screaming Mexican fans, and they all hate you, for sure. And, like we score a goal, they're throwing stuff, I was on the bench one time, and we scored a goal, and then like just beer cans and things just hitting the back of our.
And they don't get thrown out of the game?
No, nothing. I mean, you look at the corner kicks, like they have guards holding, shields over our player who's taking a corner kick the entire time. They whistle. You couldn't hear a single thing during our national anthem because they're like whistling and cheering and things like that. So it was quite the experience.
Wow. Yeah, it must have been fun though, just to be like,
it's pretty awesome.
Bro, 5,000 fans, 100,000 fans. I don't care where I'm playing. You can throw whatever you want at me. I'm in that. You know what I mean? I'm loving that.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, I gotta ask, man. Back, I don't want to make you sound like back in the day, but when you played, was the whole like scoring a goal, ripping the shirt off, sliding on the knee, was that a thing then yet?
It's always been a thing.
It's always been a thing. That's a soccer thing.
Soccer. You know what it is? It's so hard to score a goal, in a game, and you can see that, right? So when guys do score goals, it's special. A lot of times.
Imagine if we could just rip our pants.
I feel like I'm always at the edge of it.
Right after scoring a touchdown. That would take too long. But anyway, that'd have been cool. So did you get to experience that?
My son already does it. My son already gives it. Or he's like, it's pretty funny.
That's cute.
Love it, man. So
a lot of running though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I'm always at the edge
was
of
a
my
lot of
seat
fun.
when you see the ball and you're like, oh, they just got it all the way to
Hey,
that
man.
side.
Yeah. It's
Now
a
we
lot.
gotta
It's a
go
lot
all
of
the
back
way
and forth. Hey,
back.
Brian, I played soccer. That was the very
Yeah.
first sport that I played
Right.
growing up.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great foundation for athletes.
Mm-hmm.
The footwork,
Yeah.
the coordination, the communication. See, I think people misunderstand communication in soccer. It's like basketball, right? It's like the triangle. Am I correct, Ryan? There's sort of like that triangle. You always want to be, you want to
Yeah.
have, you want to be in that triangle set.
Yeah. I mean, there, a lot of people don't understand. There's formations and structure within the game a lot of times, and some of the best coaches can kind of teach that and coach that. That I think that separates some of the better teams that they have coaches that can kind of get their vision across and things like that. So it's not it is a free flowing game, but there is structure within the game. That's the best part, I think. Sometimes, right, when those individual players can razzle dazzle and put on a show.
Yeah, man.
So we're going to take this question to take this running it back. So we're called running it back. So running it back moment. So give us that moment where it was that aha moment or that moment back in time where it kind of defined you and made you. So just take us back to that moment or experience. Anytime. It might be the birth of the son or anything.
Okay. Yeah, take it back. Okay, we'll take it back to when I was about 5 to 7, and this is something
nice.
I took self-help classes, within the past maybe like 5-6 years, where I really learned a lot about where my drive came and where what made me successful in a lot of ways. And one of my moments was in childhood, and what it taught me was basically there's these things that happen to you in childhood that shape you for the rest of your life. And
Totally.
I was able to go back and figure out my one moment was we were carving pumpkins with my two brothers, older brother, younger brother. Younger brother was probably like 3, couldn't carve a pumpkin. My older brother was old enough, so he was probably like 8 or 9. So he carved a good pumpkin. I was old enough just to kind of be able to do it. So I carved this ugly pumpkin, and then my little brother had help from my mom, right? And so we take a picture at the end and we're all looking at the pumpkins, and I was like, whoa, this is not good. So I started crying. I was all pissed off. Nobody helped me. As a competition, things with my brothers. And, in that moment, I told myself, I'm not good enough. Right. And then I said, subconsciously, well, you know what, I'm going to show you. I'm going to be better than you guys. And, I go into every moment where I constantly not feel like I'm good enough. And my response to that is to go out and work hard to prove that I am better or just as good and that I belong. And so, when I took that moment.
I want you to hold that thought because I do want you to expand on this. We're going to take a quick break. I want to hear more about your moment, man, because this is big. This is what our viewers need to hear. So we'll be right back.
Running It Back is brought to you by Aloha Termite and Pest Control, your local and leading pest and termite control solution in the state, always providing you superior service with Aloha.
Okay, so we were just talking about Brian's running it back moment, and can we just talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so in that moment, I really told myself, you're not good enough. And then, I also told myself, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to show that I am. And so, I can see those moments play out in pretty much every aspect of my life. And what I was learned, about myself through this course is that, that moment, regardless of what the facts were in that moment, is how I perceive that moment. And that I'm going to be stuck with those feelings for the rest of my life. So I see that over and over in my life where I don't feel good enough. So I go into a new situation, I would go to a new team, and I would not feel good enough, right? And so what I would do is I'd go and I'd work my hardest. So I became one of the best. And so I felt like I belonged and I was there and I, it was good. And then, the next moment. So it's just like every level I went up, right? So I went from, high school to college, and I, got there, I wasn't the best, really felt like insecure, and so I worked hard, became one of the best. Same thing, went to the pros, didn't feel good. My first year was a disaster. I told myself, you're not good enough, and then got back to working hard, doing that, and then just every step I got, and what I learned in that class that I took is called Landmark Worldwide, but it took me back and says that you're always going to feel this way, right? So even when I got out and I was, the GM for the women, I was like, sure, I'm not good enough, right? So I'm like, oh, I got to work hard. And then my priorities changed. So I realized, okay, that's not what I want. So I moved on to something else, right? And, started a bar, now I'm a financial advisor, and I still have those feelings, right?
Yeah.
I still have those feelings, even though I am good enough, and I am, but it all goes back to how I perceived that one moment when I was a kid, which is crazy, right?
Nice.
But that's what's driven me my entire life. And thankfully, I said something good, like I'm going to prove, I'm going to show you, instead of saying like, oh, the world's against me.
Yeah.
And then that's your reaction over and over, and then you know what I mean. You can go in a negative direction with that.
Totally,
bro.
Wow.
That's heavy. That is deep. And as I'm listening to you, bro, I'm literally, this is what I see, and you're carving a pumpkin, and you are still carving this pumpkin, B, right? Because this pumpkin is you. Mm-hmm. And as you go through life, you're never satisfied. So yeah, you say you're not good enough, but that's really yourself telling you, bro, no, you're not, you got to get better. It's not that you weren't good enough. You're never satisfied. You never get complacent. And I got to continue to carve this pumpkin. And that's what I get from that. And that's the way I think we should all go about each day, man. Continue to carve out a little more of this pumpkin, because it's like a piece of art. We are a piece of art, right? And art can never be done. Like, you could always touch it up. You can always add more. And for you, B, it's this pumpkin. And I love that it came from your childhood, and you're continuing to carve out your pumpkin throughout your entire life, man. That is unbelievable. Brian, look, we're gonna wrap this part of the show, this part of this interview, brother, but stick around, because we have the extended version on YouTube, and I want to dive deeper into what you learned about on this course, and I want to hear more about what you're doing now. So for those that are watching, go to our YouTube page to see the extended version of this interview with Brian Ching.
Yeah,
See you there. Welcome to our extended version on YouTube. We just finished a great conversation with Brian, and we're going to continue it here. Well, I can't even speak because I just want to know more.
Yeah, because it's blue eyes. Huh? What is that? It's green eyes back there. It's dazzling.
Hey, blushing.
Oh my gosh.
No,
well,
but going back to the what is it? What was it called?
Landmark.
Landmark. Yes.
The course that he took to discover, where certain things come from and why we are the way we are today. I'm just so interested in it.
Yeah. So you talked about one thing, B. You said it's one thing, but there's three. So what's
what they do is they kind of just break down people, right? And they say we all are basically the same and we act the same way, but the way you react is different. So what they do is they try to lead you to self-discovery, right? They don't tell you the answers. You have to figure them out. You have to do some self-inspection. So they have a series of like weekends. So, a 3-weekend course. The first one's about where you mess up in relationships and going back and comparing those relationships. And then the second one's more about the things that I was just talking about, learning about, those moments in your life and how they impacted you moving forward, and then how you repeat the same things over and over in life until you can actually figure out where they actually come from, right? Then you have power over it. But if you don't know where they come from, they have power over you. And anyway, so it's a great course. I love it. They try to get you to and all your friends to do it. Because it's it's kind of like AA in a way. You have to retrain the way you think, and they want the people around you to think that way. So they're kind of pushy in getting you to do the courses. But I found tremendous benefit out of them, and they really kind of helped me learn where I was going wrong in relationships in the past, and then take responsibility for that, and then
awesome.
You can see, it helps you see where other people get stuck in life as well.
And I think that's great that you're very open about it too,
because men don't share feelings often,
And I admire that. I admire when people are open, because everyone has a story, and so
and that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you look around, and I'll probably get on a soapbox here, but hate comes from not knowing somebody, right? When most people are good people, right? And when you really take the time to get to know them, you can't hate them, right? You can't hate somebody that you know.
Don't know,
really.
yeah.
I mean, in a lot of ways, right? So. And that was one of the things that the course helped me see where other people got stuck in life. And then, you do that and you're like, okay, well, they're kind of stuck in their life, whatever, to move on. And then, you don't hate them. You just, I wouldn't say feel sorry for them, but you can
Feel
see
compassion,
where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Perspective, man. It's all about perspective. And I think that's big, bro. I think athletes need to be more vulnerable, especially male athletes, to be more vulnerable, to show, hey, man, drop the ego a little bit. You know what I mean? Lower the pride, because it's easy to be prideful as a male athlete because you feel as if you, especially a successful one, because you are on this pedestal and you feel like, hey, I can't look soft.
You got an image.
I can't look. Yeah, I got an image to sort of upkeep. I can't speak out. I can't cry, or I can't have mental health issues. I can't go to this class to better myself. What is that? It's not a man thing. That's not an all-star thing to do.
Yeah.
But Kiana, you hit it on the head. Like, people, male and female, need to do more of that. Vulnerable, speaking out, sharing these stories, because that's something that's super special. That's, to me, that's the real pandemic, is mental health.
Oh my goodness.
Right? That's sort of being overlooked through this. And bro, you're inspiring a lot of people right now, Brian.
So what kind of led me down that path to go do that? It's like when you retire, Chad, it's
The transition.
right? Because you only know one life, and it's a bit of a privileged life, and then when that's done, you have to adjust and get used to what the real world is, right? So one of the things is like I have tons of friends, great friends, but my thought of a good friend was somebody I get to see every day, I talk to every day, I travel the country with every week. And as soon as that's done, right, you still have friendships, but it's your idea of that friendship is different. So I felt like literally for like 3-4 years, I was like, I don't have any close friends.
Because you're with your boys.
And it was tough, right? And then you have a kid too on top of that. And that throws in a whole different mix, right? Your whole different dynamic with, your partner and everything like that. So, it was just a tough period. And then I got thrown into a new job, and I wasn't really given a ton of direction on it either, right? So, at first I was seeing a psychologist, like, what's going on? They're like, no, this is normal. What you're going through is normal. And I needed that, somebody to say, this is normal for athletes. And then they're like, for most people that have done something their entire life and then retire, right? It's this change that you have to kind of, and nobody prepares you for that as an athlete. Yeah. So it was tough, and I thought I was ready to retire, and I thought it was okay, I'm ready, but
well, physically,
like a ton of bricks.
Physically, right? Being physically,
physically,
towards the end, we were like, my body's just not responding the same, and you think, physically can do, but you don't realize
mentally,
the mental. You're not ready mentally, and you're right.
I don't think anyone's ready really until it happens.
Yeah,
right?
until it happens.
Chad still wants to play.
Because I still can, bro. Relax. Nah, but I think we're gonna transition here, into something. I think Ryan, is it your time?
Oh no! So like business. I'm into business, entrepreneurship. So what are you into right now? I heard you at the end of that. You said you was into that bar. Business that you got into.
So I started a bar. I invested while I was still playing. I had invested in like a nightclub with some buddies, and then I just thought this there was a need for it right next to the stadium. So I found a 25,000 square foot building that was literally right across the street from the stadium that's been empty for 8 or 9 years. Negotiated a lease, partnered with some guys that were in the industry, and we created this 25,000 square foot sports bar called Pitch 25. There's a little soccer field in there.
What?
We cut the roof off on part of the building, so it's like a outdoor enclosed courtyard, and launched that, and right before the World Cup in 2018, and you know, it was thankfully it was super successful and still is. You know, we
Must be
struggled
popular.
a little bit
Franchise?
last year,
Franchise
but
it, maybe?
outside
Bro,
that, it's coming.
Where can you
I've
put
got
that
a
in
pretty
Hawaii?
good marketing eye, but bro, what a name, Pitch 25. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of
So-
fun,
Oh yeah, it's
Wait,
time
we need to go. We need to go visit.
for Ryan Kilmaka's rapid response question.
so it's gonna be like quick questions.
Ryan's gonna ask
Okay.
you some questions, bro.
This is
First thing
it's
that
fun.
comes to mind.
First thing that comes to mind. Let's get to know you a little bit more. You know. Here we go.
Okay.
Let's go with. Here we go. This is more like. I'm gonna do both. Okay, here we go. Barcelona or Madrid?
Barcelona.
Ooh. Aloha Shoyu or Kikoman?
Oh, aloha.
Yes, sir. Bodyboarding or surfing?
I wanted to be a professional surfer. My dad was a beach boy in Waikiki, man. So
Oh, that's a nice
100%,
fun
all the way.
fact.
Chad, your dad was a beach boy.
Yeah, he
They
was a beach boy.
They might know each other.
Uncle Bruce.
Uncle Bruce. Chest day or leg day?
Oh,
You know we're working on. You know which do you prefer?
chess, I guess. No.
Same here. Here we go. Here we go. Country music or reggae?
Reggae.
Ooh, here we go. Dunkin' Donuts or Krispy Kreme?
Krispy Kreme.
Yes, the original,
day.
please.
Okay. We got a few more. Matsumoto's or Wyola Shave Ice?
Oh, Matsumoto's. I used to
No,
go there
no.
all the time.
Yeah,
man.
okay,
It was like
Yeah.
home
North
spot.
Shore.
My boys
Shore.
work there and everything.
Okay. Pretty Woman or Runaway Bride?
Pretty woman.
Got you. Okay, last
that
one. Messi or Pele?
Messi.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, because he's doing what he's doing in this day and age.
I
which
guess
is
so, huh?
exponentially more difficult, I would imagine,
Then back in the day.
than back in the day. Yeah.
The
But, I
talent
mean,
wise.
Pele was great. No, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I can't really compare, but I think any current athlete nowadays is just more physically and just
Got you. The
the
talent
conditions
wise.
are better to become just a better athlete. Maybe mentally, no, that obviously I think mental is a different side, but as far as like physicality and things like that,
Oh yeah, I mean these
Yeah, you
guys.
can't compete.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're getting
there's
they're
too much-
getting
too much
bigger, stronger,
technology,
faster.
yeah.
It's
100%.
Supplements,
crazy.
technology,
Yeah.
machines, just everything. The sports on science, sports science is crazy. Anyway,
eating
that was
better
my
now
side.
too.
Yeah, eating
Yeah.
healthy. Recovery.
Everything.
No one really thought about recovery back in the day. Now it's all recovery. Before it was just work out, get big.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was your regimen like?
When
When you were playing.
changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
When
guess
you're playing.
when you played and then
Yeah.
what
It's
is it
funny.
now? Like
It's
when,
funny,
as an
I'll give you a little
athlete and
tidbit.
now.
When I was high school, one of my schools, sophomore year, 5 feet, 100 pounds.
5 feet,
What?
100 pounds.
5 feet, 100 pounds. Sophomore year.
I
didn't hit
feel,
puberty
You
I
must
feel
have
like
run
the
fast
same way.
then.
I feel the
I
same
didn't.
way.
I ran cross country, so
Yeah.
I wasn't extremely fast. But then I hit puberty then late, but
5'2".
then I think it was like 5'11" when I high school.
What?
When I graduated
Yeah,
high
you're
school,
6'1".
5'11",
Nice.
150, and then in college, I just put on a lot of weight. Like I was like lifting twice a day, trying to get bigger. In hindsight, I would never have done any of that, right? Like in hindsight, like even if I was telling my son, I would be like, don't run cross country, because what you need is fast twitch muscles to be quick, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. You can run forever. I mean, like yes, that helps, but you don't want to develop those slow twitch muscles when you
When
need
you're
that
young,
quickness and things
yeah.
like that. So I didn't know a lot, and it wasn't until I really got to the pro that I started having better coaching or even on the weight strength and conditioning side of things, because back then when I was going through college, soccer still wasn't a big thing, so you're still training. They're trying to train you for all the other sports, whereas it wasn't really right for
soccer.
for a soccer player, I thought, in a lot of ways.
As athletes, man, lots of ups, lots of downs. But at the end of it, man, I personally wouldn't change a thing throughout my path, throughout my journey. Do you have anything that you change, or I know Drake said it, he wouldn't change a thing, he'd just go back and do it twice and relive it. Now, is there anything you'd change throughout your path, your journey?
I don't think there's anything I would change. There's some advice I would like to give myself.
What is that?
Along the way.
What is that? What's that piece of advice?
Tons of different things. It would have been, take this course earlier, learn more about yourself earlier.
See, that's what I'm going to do.
That on business side of things, I would have been doing more business things outside of the sports.
Love
Capitalize
more
on
investments and things like that.
Yeah.
It's just the knowledge that I have now. Obviously, almost everybody would go back and say, "Oh yeah, I wish I had that knowledge."
Invest in Apple, invest in Bitcoin.
But as far as like the choices I made at the time, in those moments, would I changed any of them? Not really. No. Make mistakes. Obviously, first person to ever get fined for tweeting in MLS.
What?
Wow.
Yeah. Got to put that on my resume. So.
Wow.
That's a
Bro,
fun fact.
I wish we have to get you back on, because that's a whole story in
What
itself.
did you tweet?
We can talk about that.
What did you tweet?
Yeah, really quick.
I wasn't even at the game. I was watching my team play because I was with the national team, and the linesman called a goal against us when it wasn't a goal. So I was like, "Oh, the ref cheated us." Like BS, right? So they're
Was
like,
the
"We
fine
can't
huge?"
really call him a cheater, right? Because that's not right." So
figure
you
of
just said I
speech.
disagreed. So they just kind of slapped me on the wrist and
Fine,
got a
yeah.
little bit of a fine, but got a bunch of followers apparently. Controversy.
That's it. That's what's up. And speaking of which, Brian, like, where can people get a hold of you? Where can they follow you? What's the best way?
Yeah, I'm not that active that much anymore, but Brian Kikaula on Instagram, and then Brian Ching on Twitter.
Okay, there you go. You guys say
Yay.
follow the boy, man. Hawaiian legend
Yes.
out there doing big things in Houston. Pitch 25. If you guys are ever in Houston, you got to check it out. I know I want to go check it out.
Yeah, we have to go.
That sounds like fun.
Looking forward to talk to you again.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
Brian, man, thank you so much, brother, for joining us here on Running It Back. Good luck with everything. Enjoy the family, man. You haven't retired. You just pivoted, and now you're just doing different things. So congratulations on that. And, yeah, thanks again, brother. And appreciate all of you for joining us here on the Running It Back podcast.
Running It Back was presented to you by the Honolulu Star Advertiser and Hawaiian Telecom.